Thank you for attending this webinar. The idea of today is to give a brief introduction, a brief knowledge about what should be the evolution of 5G networks in the sense of how to interact with the telco networks. So why we start moving from 5G networks, and now why we are having all of these networks defined as IAPIs. Let me move on. So a brief introduction about me. I am a researcher in I2CAT. I was involved in several national projects, national I mean here in Spain, and European projects. Some of them I have the role of work package leader, task leader, and all of these projects that I have been involved are related to these softwareized technologies, let's say. The agenda for today. I try to to divide the topics in two main sections. The first one is all about 5G networks, because I think this is important to have the context why all of the telco industry are moving to the APIs definition and approach. And the second part is, okay, what is the trend and what is the evolution now in order to have this kind of a common standardized framework in order to enable this API standardization that should be that should have some benefits for the stakeholders and vertical industries. At the end, we have a part of conclusions, and then we can discuss some questions and some other topics that we can have. So let's start. Why we have now, or why we have evolved now to 5G networks. So all of the verticals industries are having now this kind of digital transformation in order to expand all of their solutions in the worldwide. So now they are moving to the new trends of technologies, like the main one is the cloud computing, where all the solutions are moving as a cloud native solutions and deployed in the cloud, and the users can access dynamically via internet and so on. So this trend is well known as an over-the-top solutions or over-the-top industries, where all of these access to these solutions are done via maybe internet providers or mobile network operators. But in the sense of how the verticals industries can customize their solutions or how they can be adapted to the user requirements. So this is the key aspect in how to enable this kind of different kind of key performance of the solutions according to the users or maybe according to the different scenarios. So in that sense, they need a new paradigm in the sense of, in the point of view of the networks. So this, in this case, appears 5G by designing the network and the core part as a new programmable solution. So they can provide all of these parts of networking now as a softwareized solutions and programmable solutions. So with this part, 5G can support all of these kind of different types of business or services that now have been evolving. All of these solutions that we have here are evolving from the previous generations, like the 4G. We started with the e-commerce and so on, and then we start moving to the more sophisticated ones, like virtual reality and multimedia content, connected vehicles, and so on. So, excuse me, I don't know what happened with my presentation. I cannot move on. Okay. So, from the beginning of the 5G networks, starting in the release 15, the 3GPP and the standards bodies start defining how should be the standards in order to deploy the 5G networks. So at the beginning, they started defining or focusing more on the mobile broadband networks, enabling with more oriented to the multimedia side, because in that sense, the 4G the 4G deployments that we have 2017 and before, they can support this kind of solution. So they start moving in the next releases, having the release 16, then they start defining the ultra reliable low communications, and the next one having a massive communications, and the last one that we are currently uh, releasing is release 18 and 19. It's more oriented to the isolation and the integration with the other kind of network external to the 3GPP, like the industries networks, satellite networks, and so on. So in the point of view, how is the transition on to deploy the 5G networks? Uh, they implied some cost in the sense of capital expenditures and also operational expenditures in the point of view of the operators. So they started having just the 4G. In order to start moving to the 5G, they start defining and deploying just the radio access networks defined for the 5G. And it's a kind of hybrid solution where the users can access to the um, radio access defined for the 5G and also for the 4G. But the core of these networks is of the 4G networks. Then they have a definitive solution that's having both the network, the radio access, and also the core network as a 5G solution. And now it's a kind of consolidation, let's say, because the operators has invested a lot of money in the infrastructure, having and their deployments in the 4G, so they need to reuse also. So now is they try to have again a kind of a hybrid solution in different zones where maybe it's not enough having just the 5G. Maybe they need also the 4G coverture in their zones. Okay. So what is in the sense of concept, what is 5G networks? Basically, it's the evolution of the 4G, and the main focus in the concept of the 5G is enable more increased data rates, having also ultra low latency communications, enabling time-sensitive applications, and also have a greater network capacity. This is the main ideas of the 5G networks. So in the characteristics that they are having is for the ultra for the increased data, they are defining the Haze mobile broadband, that they can support more than 20 gigabytes of bandwidth in order to to have entertainment into the user devices. Also, they define a new group, this ultra reliable low latency communications. In the specifications of 3GPP, they mention that the communications in this case can have a less than 1 millisecond of latency. This is in the best case, but not always is in that sense. Depends always in the hardware also and the kind of some coverture and so many aspects. But in the theoretically it should be this kind of metric. And also they define a new group is the massive type communications, more oriented to the IoT solutions. So all of these solutions, the services that we saw at the beginning, that e-commerce, vehicle communication of vehicles, augmented reality, and so on, are put in these three group of, of solutions. Okay. So in the point of view of the design of the network, we have several new things compared with the previous generation, like the 4G. The main one is we have a clear separation between the control plane with the user plane. In the control plane, we have several functions that can execute some functionalities in the sense of managing the user connectivity, also managing the user requirements, the user mobility, and so on. And the data plane or the user planes, we have a single component that can be deployed even more closer to the user. So these functions are known as a network functions, So these are connected or are communicating through a service-based interface. So this service-based interface can be defined or can be designed as an APIs also. So what is the benefits of having this kind of interface? So now the operators can have this part of the core distributed along the network segments. They can distribute these components in the edge side or even the core side or in the cloud side. This is important because these functions can communicate between them through these specific interfaces that could be defined as APIs. So what are the benefits of having this kind of design? We have several benefits in the point of view of the operators because by design, the 5G core can be deployed as a softwareized solution, let's say, could be deployed as a VNF, having virtual machines or something similar in the cloud, or as a CNFs, more lightweight softwareized solutions that can be deployed even in the edge side. So this clearly separation between the control plane and the user plane also can have several benefits for the operators because they can have all of the control plane in the core side in their premises, and the data plane can be distributed along in the different kind of network segments. Now the trend is putting the UPF closer to the users in the edge side. So also other benefits for the operators that they can enable the support of customized performance of the services by applying network slicing. So by design, they define new components that can enable these kind of characteristics. For example, in the sense of the applying network slicing, they implement this function. There's a new function in the 5G. There's a network slice selection function that can control and can manage the isolation of the traffic depending on the user requirements. And another two new or key functions are the network exposure function and the application function. The application function could be as any type of function or application, maybe belonging to the operator itself or to external ones. So the idea of this application function is that can interact with the 5G core in order to influence maybe the traffic or maybe in order to get information about the network according to specific users. So how to do this? So 5G core has a gateway that can expose this kind of information or can enable this kind of access to the 5G core. This is the network exposure function that supports these interactions with trusted, let's say, application functions belonging to the operator or for the third parties providers. The benefits in the point of view of customers, in having this kind of architecture, they can have a more reliable services. They can have a faster and better upload rates in order to get services or provide services. Also, they have an improved responsives and reduced lag or jitter or latency in their services, and they can have or they can support a wider range of type of devices and applications. In the point of view of the service providers, now they have a new way in order to design the services because they can design their services according to the user requirements or maybe according to specific requirements based on the information that they get from the 5G cards. So this is a key aspect, and this is the main topic that we are going to talk about in the next slides. So, what are the challenges that 5G networks are facing during the deployment? So this is the basic topology of any kind of networks or mobile networks where we have the user equipment or the devices. We have the radio access. Now in the radio access, we can have also some servers that are well known as edge computing. Then we have the core of the networks that also can be a physical networks or cloud networks. And then we have external networks that can be part of the same operator, or maybe could be external of the operator that should be integrated the communications. So in the point of view of the deployments for the operators, the challenge is the cost, because updating the infrastructure is not cheap. So they need to get benefits from this invest. Also, they have new challenges regarding the definition of the spectrum, availability, regulations. Also, in the evolution of the definition of new protocols or so on, in the sense of the 5G, in order to provide new services or realign with the new services. Also, it's important to have in mind the security concerns and vulnerabilities and device compatibility and adoption, because also the user equipment should be updated in order to connect to the new standards of the 5G. And also the 5G is enable the compatibility with non-3GPP solutions or networks itself. For example, in the industry networks, the new trend is that the 5G can enhance the services in the industry side. So, but the industry has their own networks and also that has their own standards, network standards, and so on. So the integration between the 5G with these standards is not a straightforward approach. So in that sense, also we have several investigations and there are several approaches and proposals in how to integrate this kind of networks, and also with the satellites. So how to manage this kind of integration, having the well-known ground mobile network solutions, having also the access now with the satellites network. So in the 5G, in this evolution of the 5G networks, we are now still having some new challenges that we have to solve. So this part is more regarding, okay, we have the 5G networks, we have the definition, but also we have the verticals. So basically, all of the evolutions of the previous generations and now the 5G are done because the industries are evolving. So the industries are pushing to the operators in order to update and enhance the networks. So the main focus of the operators is to be more flexible with the verticals industries and with the customers. So that is the idea that to move or to have the networks more accessible for everyone. Okay, so why are moving to this new approach? Because as we can see in this timeline, starting from 2023 until 2030, according to GSMA, we are having an increasing access to the network. Also, they are increasing the devices that are connected to the internet, and also more users around the world are getting these kind of devices and also are getting access to the internet. So this is the idea to have a worldwide coverture in the next generation. In that sense, the timeline in order to advance of the 5G, we have the new releases starting in the release 18 and moving forward until release 21, where now for 3GPP and also other standardization bodies are starting on defining the main requirements for the 6G networks. Okay, so in that sense, we are now in 2024. We are in the release 19 of 3GPP, but in the next releases are coming more advances on how to access or how to be flexible for the verticals industry in order to get information from the network operators. So in that sense, are having now some efforts in the innovation side, also in the part of the European projects like 6GSNS, now we close the 5G PPP. Also in the US, the Next Alliance. So all of them are pushing their efforts in innovations in the way of how to start designing or defining the 6G standards. So all of these are moving are in or are getting the focus on having this kind of flexibility in the access to the network operators. Now, in the 5G side, we are more or less in this kind of applications with of regarding our entertainment, regarding of augmented reality, extended reality, so on. But then these kind of services, let's say, are evolving also. So in the next generation, we are going to have a more sophisticated and more demand um, solutions or services that should be supported by the network operators. So these kind of new services maybe requires a specific or strict um, requirements in the performance of the networks. So this is the basic view or the basic example of the networks where we have different kind of mobile network operators that can provide their services, but we have in over the top the the service providers, all of the kinds of verticals that we can know, like entertainment, connected vehicles, gaming, other type of verticals. But the thing here is, okay, the verticals have their own cloud solutions. They can put their solutions in a public clouds like Amazon Web Service, Google Clouds, and so on. And the users can access to their services through whatever type of mobile network operator. Also, each of these operators has their own platforms and also their own solutions in the sense of the 5G networks. But in that case, all of this traffic depends on what are the type of SLAs has the users with the operators. But in the size of the point of view of the transport side, in the internet side, all of the communications is best effort. So for the over the top services is a quite a challenge to provide a good experience to the users. So in that sense, in order also, in the first case, to expand their solutions through different sectors along different operators, they need to interact with each of them, each platform of the operators. So the challenge here is that each operator has their own telco platform. It implies that each telco platform expose a customized APIs. Each MNO has their own APIs, or maybe they have their own way on how to manage their infrastructure, their networks, and also the implementation or the deployment of the applications. So this is a problem for service providers. They need to be aligned by each operator in order to define the applications, the way how to they define the applications, and then putting in each of these operator their solutions, and then in order to provide good experience to the users. So this is the challenge that they have a limited access to the information, also to the networks. In that sense, are having new approaches or are evolving the approaches is the first one is the definition in the edge side. It's propose and specify the multi-access edge computing. They define a framework in the edge side that where the operators and third parties can put their applications and can manage the lifecycle of these applications in this kind of platform. This platform has services that can expose specific information of the infrastructure side and the network side to the applications of the verticals. How this implemented is in the next slides we're going to see. And the other point is the 3GPP. As I mentioned before, they designed the network exposure function that enables an interface that exposes specific information regarding the 5G core of the operator. So in that sense, the applications, once are deployed in each of the operators, can communicate or can access to this information. Okay, but the problem here is the applications needs to be by design adapted to the telco platform APIs and also with the network exposure function APIs. The network exposure function API is a standard, so it's is the same along, should be the same in principle along all of the network operators, but no in the case of the telco platforms. So that is the problem, because so many cases, for example, the basic use case when the user experienced this kind of roaming approach, the user that is communicating with this application moves to the another operator, needs to access to this application. Maybe this application should be migrated to this part, but in that case, this application maybe cannot communicate with the telco platform information if it is required. So this is a challenge that the service providers are facing currently. So the idea is, or the question here is, how to harmonize these different kind of APIs, and also how to provide a user-friendly exposure of this information to the verticals. Okay. In the point of view of the MEC services, here we have a basic example. The MEC services basically are functionalities that could be provided by the operator itself or maybe by third parties. So these services interacts with the information of the network, could be the 5G core network, and then can expose to the applications that are deployed in this MEC or in this edge site. So here we have the representation of the basic architecture, where an application is deployed in the edge, and this application requires the specific information, for example, of the radio site. So in that sense, the application communicates with this API, exposing the platform on the MEC, and gets information of the radio sites in order to execute specific actions according to the requirements of the users. And this service, in order to get maybe specific information regarding of the radio, and maybe it requires other information about of the user, communicates with the network exposure function designed by the or defined by the 5G. So in the standard of the ETSI-MEC, they have several services standardized that could be implemented by the operators or maybe by the MEC providers. So here we have in the right side all of the APIs that have been defined by ETSI-MEC in different ways and for different aspects. For example, for the side of the radio, for the side of the user, location of the user identity, management of the bandwidth, and other types. And also, they enable that they can, maybe the operator or third parties can decide and define a customized MEC service. So this could be adapted to customized verticals also. And the way is that they expose basic APIs, and the applications that are over them can communicate with the services in order to execute basically day-to actions. In the side of the 3GPP, the network exposure function is the gateway between the 5G core and the external applications. So the external application gets information of the 5G core through the network exposure function. So the network exposure function defines several methods in order to maybe expose relevant information for the application, or maybe in order to execute some actions internally in the 5G core. So they have this type of methods that can be applied by the applications according to their requirements. The main ones is the monitoring event, where they can have information regarding to quality of service. Also, in this method, the applications can influence and can modify the quality of service to specific users and so on. Can have also the applications information regarding the user location, regarding to the mobility of the users, and so on. So all of these are APIs, are methods that are exposed by network exposure function. But if we see, we have several methods. Maybe not all of them should be used by the application function. And also most of them has several payloads or complex payloads that should be defined into the client side of the application of the service provider. Maybe this part also could be complex because sometimes the service providers don't know or don't have too much knowledge about the network or the 5G network itself. So also this could be a quite challenge just to communicate directly with this kind of APIs in the point of view of the service provider. So it's another challenge for them also. So having all of these types of APIs, the idea is, okay, we have different approaches, we have new ways on how to expose relevant information for the service providers, but now still we have some challenges that they are facing in order to access or in order to interact with these kind of APIs. So then GSMAI, under the umbrella of Linux, also are defining a new initiative that it's called Camara, where was launched 2 years ago, more or less, in the Mobile World Congress here in Barcelona. And the idea of this project is to standardize a new way on how to expose all of this information, not just the network side, not just the radio or part of the infrastructure, but expose in a harmonized way all of the information regarding of the telco services, cloud information, infrastructure information, application information, and so on. So the idea is to have a common gateway for the service providers, for the over-the-top verticals industry, in order to get information or in order to um, interact directly with the telco industry. So Camara project is composed or aligned with several stakeholders, including vendors, customer service provider, hyperscalers, solution integrators, and even customers. It's a big project that involves several big partners in that side that they are pushing, they are proposing their solutions, and they are discussing currently how to start harmonizing each solution provided by maybe each vendor or each operator, in order to have a common uh, point of view or common approach along the telco industry. So also the idea of Camara is to have an open source approach of these APIs and could be accessible for everyone. The key aspects that tackle Camara is to have three main points. That should be this approach based on scaling, on consistency, and simplicity. And the point of view of scaling is that all of the products defined by the service provided should be spanned through all the markets, so it can be moved wherever they require. For this sense, should have this initiative a kind of consistency along or in worldwide. So once the service operators can or requires to expand or migrate their solutions to other regions, they don't need to start changing again or adapting their solutions again to other type of operators or other type of telco platforms. So the idea is to have along the worldwide a common standardized APIs in order to have the same access in order to provide the solutions. And the simplicity is that these kind of complex APIs that we saw in the previous slides is to have a more user-friendly interfaces in order to access to the information or to interact with the telco to the telco industries. Why appears this initiative? Is a necessity itself of the network operators, basically because now the operators are just acting as a tube, let's say, where the data is coming from the user and then goes to the end applications, and the MNOs just monetizing the pass of this data through their networks, nothing more. They are investing in infrastructure, they are investing in cloud solutions and so on, but they are not monetizing this kind of invest. So also the networks are evolving, so they need to update and evolve their infrastructures in order to support the new requirements of the services. But then they need to monetize also this part. So if, for example, if they are now exposing some relevant information on the 5G, so this kind of information can be monetized also. So that is the reason that they are now getting more open to everyone in order to get more invest and then get more benefits in their solutions or in their updates in the point of view of the infrastructures. And also they are evolving and they are moving to this in order to prepare for the next generations. That should be more the idea of 5G is to have a common and integrated network around the world. All of the type of networks, satellites, RAN-side, industry, and so on should be integrated and should be managed in a common way. And also the access to them should be a common for along the world. So how to enable this kind of a smooth integration between the verticals and the network providers? So this is the idea of the comparison, let's say, of the new concept, that is the network as a service, because the network as a service is a concept that started once the cloud computing appears. But now it's having another view, the network as a service, because it's more regarding to the telco side. So they are mixing two concepts. The one is the open gateway, is having a common interface in order to access to the information of the telco side. And the network as a service system is more oriented that the service providers can customize the network in order to provide the specific services. It means that the service providers can interact and can influence and can manage some part of the network in order to customize or to adapt their solutions to the user requirements. So in the point of view of the MNOs, they allow the exposition of these kind of capabilities that they have in the sense of the management of the infrastructure and also the management of the applications through these kind of APIs. And this kind of approach represents a new business opportunity for them. They can have a new revenue, monetize a new infrastructure like fiber, edge computing, a new also access of the networks. In the size of the verticals, they can now have a more network aware and also user-centric services that is better for them because they can also start providing a new way of business or a new way of monetize their services according to the user requirements. And this can be done not through the through the networks that currently we have that is based on best effort. It means having a best effort network is all of the packages are neutral in the internet, and the packages has not a specific quality of service or priority in the size of the access of the services. So this is unblock a new unlock a new capabilities for the network providers in order to set the services. What is the architecture of Camara? So as we can see, it's a complex architecture where we have several blocks. The main one is where the APIs are defined, are located. So Camara defined three types of APIs. The first one is the service APIs. They refers to the specific service that can expose the operator to the end users or to the verticals. For example, information regarding infrastructure, information regarding of the 5G core, or maybe could be kind of a capability in order to enable quality of app, the application of quality of service to the specific app, and so on. The other type of API is the service management APIs. It enables the monitoring of the services exposed itself. Once the one service is exposed by the operator, this other service can monitor the performance, the metrics, and the logs of this kind of services. And the last one is the operate APIs. The operate APIs is more oriented to the infrastructure of the operators. So in that sense, in order to get all of this information or to enable this part, these APIs should communicate with the telco APIs defined by each operator or by each network provider. So each operator or network provider has their own APIs in the network side, in the network layer. So they have APIs maybe to get information regarding the radio access network, to the transport network, or maybe to the 5G. Also regarding to the infrastructure, the cloud infrastructure, the edge infrastructure, and so on. And even they have information regarding the business support system and the operation support system. In order to interact with these types of customized APIs provided by the operators, the idea of Camara is having these APIs, and then they implement a core element that's a transformation function. It means that they expose a kind of customized APIs, but then this information is translated in the context that the operators can understand in order to perform some actions in their infrastructures. But having this a complex architecture, we can put in the same figure that we explained before. So now we have the same two operators. Each one has their own telco platforms, but in over the top, they have the Camara solution, where the APIs should be standardized and should be common through these MNOs. They have the transformation function that is important in order to translate these methods in the context of their own solutions, maybe of the network, of the cloud, or the operation and management APIs about infrastructure. So the idea is now the operators, the service providers are in the over the top. They are defining their solutions. Okay, so for them now they have another way in order to provide or to expand the solutions or the applications, or also to get information of these networks. So they deploy the applications in each of these operators through these new APIs, and also these API applications can communicate with these APIs in order to execute the take to actions, or maybe to be more adapted to to the user experiences. In that way, the service providers now they just need to focus on a single approach that they need to define on one side the specific solution, and the second side they need to set how to communicate with the Camara APIs, and then they can deploy this application wherever part around the world, because it means that all of the operators implements the same standardized APIs. So in that sense, all of the applications can communicate without the problem and get the access or influence into the network without the problems, and also can be migrated with this kind of standardized API. So this enables a new way on how these applications can be integrated, let's say, into the networks of the mobile network operators or maybe of the network providers. The role of the stakeholders into the Camara, GSMI defined two basic stakeholders. The first one, in the top, we have the customers or the third parties that are all of the service providers that these service providers consume or maybe perform some actions of the APIs exposed by the MNOs. Also can define and design their solutions according to these APIs. So this is important also. And the other role is the MNOs. So they have, as I said before, they have their own APIs. Maybe they have their own APIs based on the 3GPP or GSMI, TMF Forum, or ETSI, depending on their implementations and deployments in the network layer. And also they can expose some IT capabilities through this standardized API. So the idea is to have all of this infrastructure that now are provided by the operators as a standardized API solution, where all of the information, all of the access to this should be done through this kind of API-ification, let's say, in order to interact with this network layer. What are the APIs that now Camara is proposing? They have several APIs that are currently under develop, but the main ones are based here. So most of them are regarding to the device location, device status, about billing, about device identifier. Other ones are more regarding to influence the network, like quality on demand, should be in the home side or maybe also in the mobility side. Others ones is validations of the users and so on. All of these APIs can be clustered in different business objectives, let's say. So in that sense, Camara has defined or has classified some business approaches in order to locate each of the services exposed by the operators. For example, anti-fraud, they define several APIs that can be used for services that can exploit this kind of anti-fraud solutions. For example, this should be, and this now it's implemented in the banks. For example, Telefonica has implemented these APIs in Germany, also in Brazil, in order to enable the double authentication of users once they are a transfer of money and so on. Instead of validating just the device, the user with the password and so on, or in the point of view of the bank with the application can go to the information of the operator where the user is subscribed with the SIM in order to verify if it is the real user that is getting the information or is doing this transaction. It's a new way in order to exploit these kind of APIs for the over-the-top services. Other kind of group of services could be the mobile connectivity. It's a value-added services regarding the location. Also, it could be benefits for maybe delivery solutions and so on. Network quality optimizations. Also for the entertainment side, it should be useful, this kind of APIs. The same on the fixed connectivity in the homes, the same, the quality on demand. And also regarding having information of the infrastructure itself is, for example, once applications requires to be moved from one side to another side, this application should know where to move. So, and also needs to know what are the nodes available in order to move. In that sense, Camara defined these APIs in order to expose information regarding the edge discovery, also about the edge discovery, influence the traffic. And finally, about payments, it's the basic services that are most exploited by the over-the-top solutions. So the carrier billing, I think, is the most useful API now used for the over-the-tops. So having these kind of APIs in different groups, also for the service providers or maybe for the network providers, is difficult also to start implementing and putting in their platforms, because now all of these APIs are under discussion, under standardization. Not all of them are completely standardized. It's a work in progress. But okay, the operators needs to enable a secure way in order to manage these kind of APIs. Also to manage the access to these APIs, is because now the information of the infrastructure is exposed, so it's quite sensitive maybe information. So also the access of this, also in order to monetize or this information, the operators needs to have a new way on how to manage this. So in that sense, 3GPP is not new, but defined in the release 15, start defining the common API framework, but was more focused on the 3GPP APIs. But the idea of this framework is kind of having a unified, not bounding API that can provide a way on how to manage all the exposition and the access of the services exposed by the 3GPP. So in that sense, they define a framework that can put different functions that can take care of these kind of roles in order to manage the APIs. The idea of this framework is not just having or not just exposing the APIs or services belonging to the operator. Also enable the exposition and management of API of third parties. So this is the key aspect that Camara can exploit. So the key features of Capif is that enable the onboarding, the invokers of the APIs, that should be the end users or applications or verticals. Also enables the registration and the registration of the APIs, enables the discovery of the APIs, and also enables that third parties can define and onboard their own APIs. Also support the interconnectivity between the frameworks provided by different operators, according to the federation, also SLAs. And also, that is important, the authentication authorization to the access of these APIs. So This is the architecture that the 3GPP has this design. In the right side, we have the main framework. It's composed by different functions. The main function is the core function, and the other ones is more regarding to the management side. We have the exposure function, the publishing function, the management function, and then we have the transformation function that we said before, in order to translate all of these methods in the way that the operators can understand the actions that should be executed in their infrastructures. So the main role of the core function is to act as a repository of all of these services, and basically like a database of these APIs. This enables the discovery of these APIs and also execute the actions of regarding the authentication and authorization of the end users, and also execute provide some information regarding logging and charging and so on. The other important function is the exposure function, where the services are exposed and are being accessible for the end users. This validates the authorization of the API's invokers, and also provides also the logs and also the information regarding the access of these APIs. And another role is the API invoker. That should be any kind of application, any kind of end user, or maybe vertical that requires to access a specific services. So maybe don't know which kind of services are being exposed by operators. So at the beginning, maybe they need to discover which kind of APIs are being exposed, and then should be authorized in order to get access to these services. So here we have a basic example how is the workflow once the end user or application or invoker requires to access a specific API. So, for example, we can think about the over-the-top applications requires to access a specific service exposed by Camara. So, in order before to access to this Camara API, so the invoker should be registered. Could be the application. So the CAPIF side register and authorize the access. Also, the first of all, the provider, is registered the API. For example, the Camara API is registered in CAPIF, and then the invoker also is registered. So once both are registered in CAPIF, the invoker needs to go to the service through the tokens that should be provided by the core function of the CAPIF framework. Okay, and then once the app invoker has these authorizations, then can start consuming the service. It's a really basic workflow, and then all of these APIs that we have been explaining how to be exposed, how to be executed. Now they have a new secure way in order to be onboarded, first of all, then exposed, and then consumed. So this is the way that the operators now they are integrating all of these approaches. The first side, the way that the information of the network is exposed, then how the services could be more user-friendly exposed through Camara APIs, and finally, how all of these services could be managed in a secure way. So then 3GPP CAPIF can be exploited and can be applied for this kind of solutions. So as a conclusion, the open APIs, all of these APIs has their initiative that should be open for everyone, are leading this new paradigm in order to get more impact in the business size of the industries. Also, with this approach, the verticals applications or industry can decide more user-centric network-aware applications. So because they have now new ways in order to adapt their solutions to the user requirements. And also is quite complex also initiative to have a common and standardized APIs. So along the different operators and service and network providers. So Habara requires a really strong collaborative workspace. So because they need to harmonize the, the vision of each operator, of each network provider, in order to have a common point of view. So it's a really hard work in order to get this approach. And also, finally, the verticals taken advantage of from this new approach of network as a service system to evolve their business models in order to reduce especially development procedures. So in that sense, the idea is that all of these approaches regarding the APIs are more focused and more oriented in order to facilitate the integration of the verticals into the network operators. So this is all. Thank you everyone for attending. I'm really glad to answer any question or doubt that you may have. I don't see questions, I think, in the chat. Do you have any question, comment? Yes, Anastasius. Anastasius, yes.
Hello, thank you very much for the presentation. I have two questions.
Yeah.
The first one is regarding a scheme that you showed on the progress of the 5G and on the capabilities of the 5G and the progress of the last years. I was wondering if the upcoming 6G will create more problems if we like to invest on 5G, and if all the investment and the technological progress we might have done will just be thrown away and the APIs are not the same, technology not the same, architecture is not the same. So my question is how 6G will affect all of the progress we have done so far.
The idea of the 6G is not to have a new, let's say, or a strong change in the size of the networks. And the point of view of 6G is more, they have a new approaches. Is having the same way that the 5G are now defined, let's say in the core side. But the thing here is they are trying to integrate it, the other networks that in the previous generations were not integrated. For example, the sides of how to manage time-sensitive networks in the industry. So, okay, they are defining new standards in order to integrate by design into the core of the networks. Also, artificial intelligence. And now the artificial intelligence is okay, putting in different parts of the network some kind of intelligence that executes the action in this side. But in the 6G, the idea is that the artificial intelligence can interact between them through the standards defined in the 6G. So the idea of the 6G is not have a strong change, let's say, in the way that the 5G now it's designed. The idea is in the 6G is to integrate all of the new technologies that are coming from. The main one is artificial intelligence, so obviously, how to manage the data traffic and so on, and then how to integrate with the rest of the technologies like time-sensitive networks, maybe satellites networks, and so on. So that should be the impact and the new trends of research on how to define new network functions. For example, at the beginning, 5G core design and define the basic network functions that I presented at the beginning of the slides. But now in the new releases, are several new ones because there are new ones regarding, for example, the network data analytics function. So because now are appearing new requirements in the networks. So they are the facility of the 5G is that you can design a new function and you can put into the 5G because all of these functions can communicate through the standardized APIs or service-based interfaces. So that is the way that we have a more modularity in the 5G. So new functions can be implemented or can be enhanced, but the change of the 5G, I think, not should be a dramatic change.
Okay, thank you. I have another second question. It is similar of what you have said. It's just a follow-up, would say. There, in the architecture that you showed and also recent, there's too many components and too many functions everywhere, too many data analytics, too many AI. There's a lot of fields, domains, applications that, and the company could invest only in one part of all of this ecosystem. So based on your experience, which one is has got a better market potential for an SME to make an investment? Because
Depending on the scenario or the use case that you want to go into, because basically maybe you need just a 5G in order to enable mobility access for a specific use case. Okay, you can go to the basic 5G core with not too much sophisticated network functions. Okay, but maybe you need to provide a kind of more restricted uh, based on the key performance of the networks. For example, in the industry side, I think is the common example that is now analyzed. For example, in that sense, you need a fast response. For example, in robots that are moving in the industry, they need time-sensitive communications. They need clocks in order to be synchronized, in order to execute some actions and so on. So in that sense, maybe you need to implement a 5G core more sophisticated with more network functions that enables these kinds of characteristics. For example, network data analytics function or functions that can manage the synchronization of the clocks into the 5G in order to have these or to be aligned with the time sensitive networks and so on. So it's open, let's say, depending on the use case and depending on the scenario that you want to deploy the 5G solution, let's say.
thank you, Andres. Thank you.
Thank you, Tas, for the questions. Michalis, yes?
Hi, Andres. Thank you for the so interesting presentation. You showed in one slide, I haven't kept the number, that the southbound, let's call it interface, the interfacing towards the network. To what extent has this integration, just a rough estimate, let's say, a bit behind, I believe?
This one?
Yes, 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 yes. To what extent, I'm referring to the southbound, let's call it interface, towards the technical APIs, has the integration towards 3GPP, ETSI, Open RAN, has progressed so far? Just a rough, let's call it, indication, yeah.
Yeah, all of these APIs, let's say, that has defined here in the network capabilities are standardized, and most of them by TM Forum. So the idea is that most of the solutions that currently the operators has implemented in their solutions, they implement these APIs. So the southbound should be in the point of view of the Open Gateway side. So the Open Gateway side, the southbound should be to adapt the the APIs designed by the Camara, maybe, and translate these methods in the point of view of 3GPP. Because, for example, if we have to get access of the network exposure function that we saw at the beginning, the NEF exposes a quite complex API, but the information exposed by Camara about how to, for example, how to influence the quality of service in the network is more simple. simpler the API. So
for,
how to
for
translate?
the end user, yeah.
Exactly. The translation is the southbound interface between the Camara and the 3GPP API. But the 3GPP API is a standard API that the operators follows these standards and then implement. So this all of these APIs should be common along the infrastructure. Maybe, obviously, not all of the operators maybe cannot have all of these infrastructure, but most of them can have and then can implement regarding transport networks, regarding the 5G. And the new ones is regarding, for example, the edge computing. As I said, the ETSIMEC. For example, ETSIMEC define an APIs for the management of the life cycle of the apps. So maybe some operators has ETSIMEC approaches, so they need to implement these kind of APIs. So the transformation function can adapt to this kind of API in order to get information of these edge infrastructure. But it's not completely necessary that they implement this part. This is the key aspect, because most of the operators can be completely aligned to the standards and others maybe not. It's not mandatory, let's say, to have the same APIs. But the key aspect here is that the Camara, yes, provide a harmonized or standardized APIs, but below the operators takes care of translates this information of Camara in the point of view of their own solutions. So in that case, doesn't matter what kind of APIs they are having here. For example, they can have a specific orchestrator for edge clouds with a specific API, but doesn't matter. They can expose this information through Camara API, but in the middle of them, they have a middle software that translates the information between them. So this is the idea.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michalis. Another question? Comment? I don't know, Marina, shall we continue or shall we close the webinar?
If there is no other question, we can close the webinar here. Is there any other question? Thank you, Andres, for the very interesting presentation.
Thank you also for the invitation.
Do we have any other question? I think no. So great. We will just inform that we will have the recording video of this presentation in YouTube in the upcoming days. In order if someone wants to rewatch it and for the rest of the audience. So I think we can close here.
Okay. Thank you, Marina. Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Andres.